They dismissed me for a crime I didn't commit. I forced them to call me back. They called me a traitor, a spy, a thief of classified secrets. The Air Force officially stated, Captain Sarah Chen is guilty of espionage. My discharge papers said, dishonorable discharge, unfit for service, security risk. 12 years of my life, gone, erased, officially branded a criminal. But here's where I need you to stay with me, because this story is about to blow your mind. I didn't commit that crime. Someone else did, someone with authority, someone who framed me deliberately. And what I did next, please don't miss any of this, I didn't just prove my innocence. I forced the entire United States Air Force to admit they were wrong, reinstate me, promote me, and send the real criminal to prison. This is my story of institutional revenge. Watch what happened. Tell me in the comments if you think I was justified. The Fool's Charge. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, Air Force Intelligence, 12 years of service. 2 combat deployments, top secret security clearance, distinguished career trajectory. I worked at Andrews Air Force Base in the Counterintelligence Directorate. My job was analyzing classified intelligence, tracking threats, protecting sensitive information. I was excellent at my job, really excellent. My performance reviews were stellar, my superiors respected me, my career was on an upward trajectory. Then, in one moment, everything shattered. One morning, I was called into Colonel Marcus Webb's office. He was my superior officer, Director of Intelligence Operations, 29 years of service. Everyone respected him, everyone trusted him. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen from him before. And please pay close attention to what he said next, because these words changed my entire life. Colonel Webb, Captain Chen, we have a serious problem. Classified documents have gone missing from our secure vault. Documents containing intelligence about our covert operations in 3 countries. I felt my stomach drop immediately. Missing classified documents meant a national security crisis. This was serious. This was institutional catastrophe. Then he said something that made everything worse. Colonel Webb, an initial investigation suggests that you removed those documents from the vault without authorization. Wait, stop right there. I need you to understand what just happened. He just accused me, a junior captain, of espionage, of stealing classified documents, of committing treason against the United States. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process what he was saying. Me, Colonel, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I would never remove classified documents. That's not something I would do, ever. But he just stared at me. And here's where I need you to really focus, because what he said next is where my entire life derailed. Colonel Webb, we have evidence, Captain. We found your batch access logs showing you entered the vault after hours. We found classified documents in your personal storage locker. We found transferred funds in your bank account that match intelligence we gathered about foreign intelligence services paying for classified information. Do you understand what just happened? He didn't ask questions. He didn't investigate further. He constructed a narrative where I looked guilty. I remember my voice shaking as I responded. Me, Colonel, someone is framing me. Someone is deliberately setting me up. I didn't access that vault after hours. Those documents aren't mine. Those funds aren't from selling secrets. Please, please investigate further before you make accusations like this. But he had already made his decision. I could see it in his face. His mind was closed. He suspended me immediately. Within 48 hours, military police escorted me from the base, escorted me, like I was a criminal, like I was a security threat. Within 1 week, a military court-martial was convened. And please understand the position I was in. A senior colonel, Colonel Marcus Webb, with 29 years of service, with authority, with credibility, was testifying that I committed espionage. I was a junior captain, nobody, powerless, facing the most serious crime an intelligence officer could possibly commit. The court-martial lasted 3 days, just 3 days to destroy my entire career. The verdict came down on a Friday afternoon, and I need you to feel the weight of this moment. Listen to what the judge said. Judge, on the charge of espionage, guilty. On the charge of theft of classified materials, guilty. On the charge of unauthorized removal of classified information, guilty. 4 guilty verdicts, 4. My sentence, dishonorable discharge, 12 years of service completely erased, my security clearance permanently revoked, my reputation permanently destroyed. I walked out of that courtroom officially labelled a criminal, officially labelled a traitor, officially labelled a spy. The Air Force issued an official public statement. Captain Sarah Chen has been convicted of espionage and unauthorized possession of classified materials. She poses a security threat and has been permanently discharged from the United States Air Force. That statement followed me everywhere. Job interviews, background checks, housing applications, everywhere. I was officially a felon, officially a traitor, officially a security threat. But here's what I knew, and this is crucial. I knew absolutely, completely, undeniably that I was innocent. But nobody would listen. Nobody would believe me. I was just a dismissed captain challenging the testimony of a powerful senior colonel. That's when I made a decision. And please stay with me because this is where the story completely changes. I was going to investigate this myself. I was going to expose Colonel Marcus Webb. I was going to force the military to admit they were wrong. The investigation. Everyone told me to give up. Everyone told me to accept my fate. Move on, stop claiming innocence, just disappear quietly. Instead, I began investigating. And I need you to understand what I was up against. I had no official authority. I was a dismissed officer. I had no access to military systems. I had no institutional backing. But I had something more powerful. I had the truth, and I had determination. I started analyzing the evidence Colonel Webb had presented against me. Let me walk you through this, because this is where the frame becomes visible. The badge access logs. Colonel Webb claimed my badge accessed the vault after hours. I obtained copies of those logs. But watch this carefully, here's what I discovered. My badge wasn't the only one used that night. Another badge, belonging to Colonel Webb's executive assistant, had also accessed the vault that same night. But that detail was never mentioned in the investigation. Why would a senior colonel's executive assistant be accessing the vault after hours? The classified documents in my locker. Colonel Webb claimed he found classified documents in my personal storage locker. Those documents were supposedly my proof of guilt. But I obtained the security footage from the secured building where my locker was located. The building had 24-hour security cameras monitoring every corridor. And watch what the footage showed. This is where I nearly had a heart attack. The footage showed someone placing those documents in my locker, someone who had a key to my locker, someone who had administrative access to all officer lockers. Colonel Marcus Webb, my superior officer, was planting evidence against me. I watched that footage over and over again. It was undeniable. It was proof. The bank transfers. Colonel Webb claimed I received payments from foreign intelligence services. The bank records showed mysterious deposits matching amounts alleged for classified information sales. But I obtained my complete financial records. I traced those deposits. They didn't come from overseas accounts. They didn't come from foreign intelligence services. They came from a domestic business account. Colonel Marcus Webb's personal business account. He transferred money into my account to create the appearance that I had sold classified information. Do you understand what I'm saying? He fabricated the evidence. He constructed false proof. He deliberately framed me. I spent 4 months investigating this. 4 months using money I barely had. 4 months working retail jobs at night while carrying the label of convicted spy during the day. And slowly, piece by piece, I built an irrefutable case. I hired a private investigator. We traced Colonel Webb's activities. We discovered that he had been selling classified information to a foreign intelligence service. But when an internal security audit was scheduled, an audit that would have exposed his crimes, he needed a scapegoat. I was that scapegoat. We found bank records showing he received $250,000 from overseas shell corporations. We found encrypted communications showing he was in direct contact with foreign intelligence operatives. We found proof that he had removed the classified documents from the vault and sold copies of them. And here's the crucial part, please listen to this. We found proof that he had deliberately framed me. Communications where he discussed needing a convincing scapegoat. Documents where he outlined how to plant evidence in my locker, planning documents showing how to manipulate the investigation. He wasn't just committing espionage, he was deliberately framing an innocent officer. After 4 months, I sat back and looked at everything I had collected, and I realized something critical. I had built a complete prosecutorial case against Colonel Marcus Webb. Now I had to make a decision, and I need you to think about this with me. Should I go public, leak this to the media, damage his reputation? Or should I force the military to admit they were wrong through institutional channels? I chose institutional justice. I chose to prove that the system, the same system that had failed me, could actually work. I took everything to the Office of Special Counsel for the Air Force. The evidence build. When I walked into the Office of Special Counsel with that folder, I didn't know if they would even listen to me. I was a dismissed officer, a convicted felon according to military records, a documented security threat. Why would the Air Force listen to anything I had to say? But I had evidence, real evidence, irrefutable evidence. I handed the folder to the investigator, Special Agent Michael Torres, and I watched his face as he reviewed what I had collected. His expression changed. It went from skeptical to shocked to amazed. Agent Torres, Captain Chen, this is extraordinary. You've essentially built a complete prosecutorial case yourself. This shows not only that Colonel Webb committed espionage, but that he deliberately framed you to cover his crimes. For the first time in months, I felt like someone believed me. The Office of Special Counsel opened a formal investigation. And then, listen to what happened next, the investigation expanded. They discovered that Colonel Webb's espionage activities weren't limited to one foreign intelligence service. He had been selling classified information to multiple foreign services for 3 years. The security breach was massive. Thousands of classified documents compromised, intelligence operations exposed, military personnel in danger. They discovered that his framing of me was calculated and deliberate. He had specifically targeted me because I was junior enough to be vulnerable, credible enough to be believable, and isolated enough that few would question his narrative. They interviewed witnesses. Some corroborated his manipulation, officers who had been pressured to testify against me, investigators who had been directed to focus on me instead of pursuing legitimate leads. After 6 months of investigation, the Office of Special Counsel compiled their findings. Colonel Marcus Webb, guilty of espionage, guilty of framing an innocent officer, guilty of obstruction of justice, guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud. Captain Sarah Chen, completely innocent, deliberately framed by her superior officer. The investigation determined that my original court-martial was fundamentally flawed. The evidence against me was planted. The witnesses were coerced or lied. The investigation itself was manipulated. My conviction was built on lies. Now the Air Force faced a choice, and I need you to think about this. What do you think they should do? Do they admit they made a catastrophic error? Do they try to cover it up? Do they restore my honor or protect their own reputation? The double court-martial. The military decided to do the right thing. They decided to have 2 court-martials. Court-martial number 1, my exoneration. My original conviction would be reconsidered. The new evidence would be presented. A military judge would determine whether my discharge was justified. I testified. I presented the evidence of my innocence. I showed how Colonel Webb had planted evidence, fabricated access logs, and orchestrated false testimony. The military prosecutors presented their investigation findings. They presented communications showing Colonel Webb's deliberate framing of me. Bank records proving his espionage, not mine. Security footage showing him planting evidence in my locker. Colonel Webb's defense team argued that the new evidence was inadmissible, that the original investigation was thorough, that I was still guilty. But the evidence was overwhelming, it was undeniable. The military judge reviewed everything carefully. And then came the verdict, and I need you to feel the weight of this moment, because this was the moment my name was officially cleared. Judge, in light of newly discovered evidence of innocence, the previous conviction of Captain Sarah Chen is hereby overturned. The court finds that Captain Chen was the victim of deliberate framing by a superior officer. Her discharge is invalid. My conviction was erased, officially overturned, officially declared unjust. I was officially innocent. But that was only the first court-martial. Court-martial number 2, Colonel Marcus Webb's prosecution. Immediately following my exoneration, Colonel Marcus Webb faced his own court-martial. And this is where institutional justice became real. He was charged with espionage 12 counts, theft of classified materials 8 counts, conspiracy to frame an officer 5 counts, obstruction of justice 4 counts, conduct unbecoming an officer 6 counts, 35 counts total. This court-martial lasted 5 days, 5 days where every moment the evidence mounted against him. The prosecution presented communications with foreign intelligence services, bank records showing $2.4 million in payments received for classified information, security footage showing him removing classified documents, testimony from officers he had manipulated. They presented the evidence of him deliberately framing me, his emails discussing needing a scapegoat, his planning documents showing how to plant evidence, his recordings of him coaching false witnesses. Colonel Webb's defense was weak. He claimed the investigation was biased, that his activities were authorized, that framing me was a misunderstanding. None of it held, none of it. The military judge reviewed the evidence carefully. And then came the verdict, exactly 12 months after my original wrongful conviction. Judge on the charge of espionage, guilty. On the charge of theft of classified materials, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to frame an officer, guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice, guilty. Guilty on all 35 counts. The sentencing, 25 years in federal military prison. Dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all military benefits and pension. Colonel Marcus Webb would spend the next 25 years in prison for the crimes I had been wrongfully convicted of. And as I sat in that courtroom watching his face when the verdict was read, I realized something critical. This wasn't personal revenge, this was institutional accountability. This was the system, the same system that had failed me, finally working correctly. Tell me, do you think he deserved it? Do you think 25 years was the right sentence? Comment below with your thoughts. The rehabilitation and reinstatement. After my exoneration, the military faced a critical decision. What do they do about Captain Sarah Chen? I was innocent, my discharge was invalid, my conviction was overturned. The Air Force issued an official statement acknowledging the wrongful dismissal. They issued a public apology. But reinstatement wasn't just about putting me back on active duty. It was about restoring my honor and compensating me for 12 years lost. Here's what happened. First, full rank restoration. I was reinstated as captain. My rank was restored completely. All the years I should have been advancing as an officer, those years were acknowledged. Second, promotion to major. In recognition of the injustice I suffered and my extraordinary investigation work that exposed massive espionage, I was promoted to major. This was a promotion I would have earned during my years of wrongful dismissal. Third, back pay. I received full back pay for all 12 years since my wrongful dismissal. The Air Force calculated what I would have earned if I had remained on active duty and continued my career progression. That amount was paid to me in full. Fourth, security clearance restoration. My security clearance, permanently revoked as a result of my false conviction, was fully restored. More than restored. I was granted an even higher level clearance in recognition of my integrity. Fifth, the career placement. The Air Force offered me any position within the intelligence community, any assignment I wanted, any career trajectory I desired. I chose a position that would allow me to help other officers who had been wrongfully accused, who had been framed, who had been dismissed. The public apology. The Air Force released an official statement, and please listen to this carefully because this is what institutional accountability looks like. We acknowledge that Captain Sarah Chen was the victim of deliberate framing by a superior officer. The Air Force recognizes that our institutional systems failed to protect one of our own from false accusation and wrongful conviction. We deeply regret the injustice Captain Chen suffered. She has been fully exonerated, reinstated, and promoted. We are committed to ensuring such institutional failures do not occur again. That statement was published, distributed, made official. The military institution that had branded me a traitor and convicted me of espionage officially declared me innocent. And Colonel Marcus Webb, he's serving 25 years in military federal prison. Epilogue. They said I was guilty, I proved I was innocent. They said I was a security threat, I proved I had integrity. They said I would fade away quietly as a dismissed officer. Instead, I forced the entire United States Air Force to admit they were wrong. I spent 4 months investigating the man who framed me. I spent 12 months fighting through 2 court-martials to clear my name. I spent years rebuilding a career that was stolen from me. But I won completely, institutionally, officially. I'm now Major Sarah Chen, Air Force Intelligence, restored rank, promoted position, full honor restored. And Colonel Marcus Webb is serving 25 years in prison. This is what happens when you refuse to accept injustice, when you investigate the truth, when you force institutions to admit their failures. The military didn't want to believe that one of their own senior officers had committed espionage. They didn't want to believe they had made a catastrophic error in my court-martial. But the evidence was irrefutable. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's forcing the entire institution that wronged you to publicly acknowledge their mistake and restore your honor. That's what I did. That's what institutional accountability looks like. Now tell me, do you think I was justified? Was my investigation necessary? Did I go too far? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think.